anytime I am offered a hard drink, I am always very scrupulous. I understand that the spike in dopamine during that time period will result in low dopamine the next day. Lack of energy, lack of engagement, lack of anything. It is insane that a neurotransmitter, a chemical in your brain, can have so much power over you, physically, psychologically, and in many other ways. So what exactly is dopamine? How does it work? And what is the science behind it? One neurotransmitter that plays a role in the science of motivation is dopamine. Dopamine's chemical signal gets passed from one neuron to the next. And between those two neurons, dopamine interacts with various receptors inside the synapse. There are different types of receptors, neurons, and pathways that neurotransmitters can take. For motivation, specifically, it matters which pathway dopamine takes. The mesolimbic pathway, which comes from the middle of the brain and branches to various places like the cerebral cortex, is the most important reward pathway in the brain. One of the mesolimbic stops is the nucleus accumbens. When there is an increased amount of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, it's a part in the hypothalamus, it triggers feedback for predicting rewards. Essentially, your brain recognizes that something important is about to happen. So dopamine kicks in. Dopamine performs its task before we obtain rewards, meaning that its real job is to encourage us to act, either to achieve something good or avoid something bad. Most people thought dopamine was the neurotransmitter for pleasure, but spikes in dopamine in moments of high stress. In a study, a team of Vanderbilt scientists mapped the brains of go-getters and slackers. They found that people willing to work hard had higher dopamine levels in the striatum and the prefrontal cortex, two areas known to impact motivation and reward. Among slackers, dopamine was present in the anterior insula, an area of the brain involved in emotion and risk perception. As Yukon researcher John Solomon explains, low levels of dopamine make people and other animals less likely to work for things. So it has more to do with motivation and cost/benefit analysis than pleasure itself. It's crazy to think that dopamine not only is the pleasure center that rewards your brain, but it also spikes in people who have PTSD anytime you relive a horrible memory or you know something bad is about to happen. But it also depends on the pathway that it travels, because there are many pathways. But if it travels in the thalamus, then it is the pleasure centers.